Hey, I'm Sean.
And I'm MJ, and today we're looking at another way that the Holy Spirit is at work in our lives.
Hey, MJ. Have you ever had an experience where you were completely out of your comfort zone and you did something you normally wouldn't do that the Holy Spirit prompted?
Yeah, actually just a couple weeks ago, I was asked to speak at an event where I knew there was gonna be hundreds of people there. And at first, I felt so scared. I did not want to do it, but I felt the prompting of the Holy Spirit pushing me to do so, and I did, and I actually really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. That fits perfectly with today's big idea that the Holy Spirit makes us bold.
Yeah, and He helps us to take steps that we would otherwise not take on our own. Let's check out today's God story and see what this looks like.
Welcome to Lynda's Aussie Adventures. Did you know that the box jellyfish found in the waters off the Great Barrier Reef is responsible for more deaths than sharks, snakes, and saltwater crocodiles combined? Hey, I'm Lynda, and it's so great to be hanging out with you again this week. So when I was in high school, I had this really great group of friends, and they decided to go away together for a week to hang out, have a lot of fun. But I also knew that there was going to be a lot of drinking there, and we were all underage, and I just knew that it was something that God wouldn't want me to be a part of. So it was really hard, but I had to say to my friends, you have fun, go, but I'm actually going to stay here and not come. And it was hard because I was going to miss out on stuff, and a few of them didn't talk to me for a while because they thought I was no fun and thought I was judging what they were doing, but I just knew that it was something I shouldn't be a part of. And when it comes to sharing the good news message about Jesus, His life, His love, His death, His resurrection, sometimes we need to be really bold. And when God has a job for us, He can make us extra bold and courageous by the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's today's big idea. The Holy Spirit makes us bold. I want to share a story with you today from the Bible about a man named Stephen. And the Holy Spirit made Stephen very bold to share the message of Jesus. So after Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, the Holy Spirit became the gift that was given to everyone who follows Jesus. And Stephen was a follower of Jesus, so he had the gift of the Holy Spirit. Stephen had been chosen as a leader in the church. Let's read some of his story from Acts. Stephen, a man full of God's grace and power, performed amazing miracles and signs among the people. None of them could stand against the wisdom and the spirit with which Stephen spoke. But there are some men who started to disagree and argue with Stephen, and so they started telling lies about him, and Stephen was actually arrested and taken to a Jewish court called the Sanhedrin. Now, even after he'd been arrested, these men kept spreading lies about him and saying that he was teaching things that were against God when he was actually just telling people about the good news of Jesus. Let's see what happens next. At this point, everyone in the high council stared at Stephen because his face became as bright as an angel's. Then the high priest asked Stephen, "Are these accusations true?" And instead of answering the lies that people were telling about him, the Holy Spirit made Stephen bold to tell them about Jesus. And starting at the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, Stephen shared all of God's story with the court. He shared about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then Moses, Joshua, David, and even Solomon. Then he went on to talk about prophecies and all about Jesus. And the men in the court were so angry because they didn't believe what Stephen was saying. They were ready to kill him. But let's see what Stephen did next. But Stephen, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed steadily into heaven and saw the glory of God. And he saw Jesus standing in the place of honor at God's right hand. And he told them, "Look, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing in the place of honor at God's right hand." Then they put their hands over their ears and began shouting. They rushed at him and dragged him out of the city and began to stone him. As they stoned him, Stephen prayed, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit." He fell to his knees, shouting, "Lord, don't charge them with this sin." And with that, he died. Now, this might seem like a sad end to the story, but it really isn't. Stephen didn't die for no reason. He died telling others about Jesus. And the Holy Spirit made him bold and courageous to share about Jesus no matter what happened to him. And the great news is that for Stephen, death wasn't a sad thing. It just meant that he got to be with Jesus forever. And that's the happy ending in this story. Now remember, being bold for Jesus can look different for each of us. This is Stephen's story, but it might look different in your life and in mine. It might be as simple as reaching out to somebody who's lonely, or big like standing in front of a crowd to tell them about Jesus, or it could just be telling your friend that you're praying for them. So remember, when you feel nervous to share about Jesus or unsure that you're going to have the right words, that the Holy Spirit makes us bold. The Holy Spirit works in us and through us, so get ready to be bold and share the good news of Jesus with the world. It's been awesome hanging out, and I'll see you next time.
Stephen's story might just be one of the most courageous stories in the Bible, but we shouldn't think that boldness from the Holy Spirit necessarily requires sacrifice.
Yeah, we all have our own relationship with God, and our experience may not look like Stephen's at all. But with the Holy Spirit, we can be an encouragement and blessing to those around us.
Yeah, let's listen in on our friend Josh's story and see how the Holy Spirit is at work in his life.
I consider myself a doer because the camp I work at, we have lots of different games and activities and like things like archery or climbing tower. We have to set those up. My job typically is to make sure those things get from the idea phase to planning to purchasing to setting up, and I love getting that whole thing done. My name's Josh, and I really enjoy hanging out with my friends. I like rock climbing, and one of my favorite foods are burritos. Bean burritos especially, so good. When I grew up, I was homeschooled. So my parents taught me everything there. As we went along, I was doing great in the subjects. Then as I got closer to high school, I actually ended up falling behind in about 2 different subjects, and I really didn't do well in those. The subject I did the worst in was English. So I always felt like my writing was subpar, and that really made me feel super not confident because I would see my friends who went to public school and they would, have much better spelling than me or do better at different things. And I just felt really, like I said, unconfident about that. When I was 14 years old, I got a chance to go to Circle Square Ranch, a kids' summer camp, and I really enjoyed it. They really cared for me and they really showed me who God was. So at camp, I was able to open up to 2 of the different leaders there, and they really helped me work through my issues with English. They just told me that I was smart enough. They said that even though I didn't feel it, I was smart and I could do it. And they just helped me make a plan, trying to give me resources and other tips and tricks to kind of get better at the subject I was struggling in. One big thing I learned from them was not only on the tips and tricks on how to get better at English, but it also specifically was about how to build a plan for problems you're having or just to do something in school or life. And then we use those plans to succeed. And like in my case, I graduated high school. I was really excited about that. One part of the plan was to get to university. These 2 leaders really encouraged me to do that. And so with that, they suggested I should work to be able to save money for school, and I did. And I was able to actually end university without actually going into any debt. And I graduated there as well, which was really exciting for me. So I've worked at camp for many years. My job at camp is to be able to help talk about camp and promote camp better. So our decision was to build an app for the iPhone. And what we did with that was we started at the beginning of 1 year with nothing, just the idea in our heads. And I ended up learning how to code and all that stuff. And until the end of the year, we ended up with the app in the App Store. So looking back on my homeschool and my university experience, these 2 leaders really did encourage and support me in so many different ways. They helped me feel confident even though I didn't feel like I had the right to be able to do that. They're kind of like the Holy Spirit in that sense. At least I feel that way because of them supporting in the background and being such a giant blessing to help me get through what I was struggling with. So if you ask my 15-year-old self, if I would have been able to work at camp for so long, graduate university, build an app, stand in front of a scary camera and talk to it, I would have said you're crazy. But I have been able to do these things. I'm here now, and it's just very encouraging to think how far I've come. The encouragement I want to give is that really go and look for people to support you. Look at the Holy Spirit for the encouragement and confidence that you need to be able to get from where you are to where you want to be.
I thought it was so funny how Josh said that he had to face a scary camera in order to share his story with us, but I'm so glad that he did. Thanks, Josh, for building up the courage to do so.
Yeah, and I love that you had people who helped you and guided you to discover the talents and gifts God gave you. Also, that app is pretty cool.
So cool. It's amazing that the Holy Spirit gives us the boldness to face every situation, whether it's a big problem or a small little challenge. He's there with us.
Yeah, well, it's time to break into our small groups. Let's see what this looks like in our lives.